Welcome to the 27th Annual Future Harvest Conference. We are delighted to have you with us. I'm Grace Leatherman. I'm the Executive Director of the Future Harvest. And together with our staff and board, we're so pleased to welcome you here today. We always want to begin with a land acknowledgement, and we're delighted that we have Hope Butler with us today. A land acknowledgement is a statement formally recognizing the historical and continuing connection between Indigenous peoples and the land. Our acknowledgement honors the ancestors of the Indigenous people who are the original stewards of these lands, waters, flora, and fauna. Montgomery County is located on the unceded and ancestral lands of the Piscataway Conoy people. Piscataway Conoy means people of where the waters blend below the rapids. Future Harvest recognizes people of many sovereign Indigenous nations that have resided in this region. We respectfully acknowledge the rich culture and contributions of all Indigenous communities, past, present, and future. As a community of farmers and educators, advocates, and eaters, land is at the core of our work. Before we begin, we acknowledge the land that was stewarded by generations of Indigenous people who cared for and protected this place long before colonization, and who continue that work today. We recognize the deep agricultural knowledge, foodways, and ecological practices that Indigenous communities developed and shared, often without credit, and from which our food systems continue to benefit. To help us reflect on these legacies and responsibilities they inspire, we are honored to welcome someone whose life and work embody the connection to the land, culture, and community. We have Hope Butler. Hope is the daughter of Cecilia and Richard Butler, and is a Piscataway woman of the Deer Clan, and is an educator. Rooted in the traditional values of the Piscataway people, she centers Indigenous knowledge systems while honoring the diverse cultures and lived experiences of Indigenous nations worldwide. Her work is driven by a commitment to cultural preservation, community healing, and reshaping how Indigenous people are understood and represented. Hope currently serves as the Native Student Engagement Fellow at Georgetown University, where she supports Native student belonging, cultural affirmation, and holistic engagement. She is an undergraduate senior at Georgetown School of Continuing Studies and a former undergraduate fellow with the Racial Justice Institute. In summer of 2024, she received a summer research fellowship and served as student lead researcher for the Racial Justice Institute project, Black Resiliency in the British Caribbean, with a focus on foodways. She serves on the board of directors of the Maryland Indian Tourism Association and was honored as Adult of the Year by the Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs in 2021. Her past leadership includes president of the American Indian Society of Washington, D.C., and board member of the Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians. Originally from Upper Marlboro, Hope now lives in Northern Virginia with her emotional support rescue rabbit, Dr. Pepper L. Butler Coday. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Hope Butler.
Gotta talk about the rabbit. Way ho, 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 Guy, what's your name? Oh, Guy, what's your name? Guy, what's your name? Oh, Guy, what's your name? Guy, what's your name? Way, oh, Guy, what's your name? Oh, Guy, what's your name? Way, oh, Guy, what's your name? Oh, Guy, what's Chine. We begin with the land, not as the ground beneath, but as a grandmother. She who holds our bones, our stories, and our steps. Willagitku, Nulaleptem, El Paik. Good afternoon. I'm glad that you all came here today. Hola, me llamo Esperanza. Hello, my name is Hope. My native name is Machisa, which means fire starter or spark of a flame, and I'm here starting this fire today for a Future Harvest conference. It is a native tradition to begin where the exchange of ideas is to occur. To find in that end, we address the outcomes by noting the gifts we receive and from what we call the four directions. From the east, where the sun rises, may new truths awaken. From the south, where warmth gathers, may love be fearless. From the west, where shadows teach, may we heal our wounds. And from the north, where ancestors watch, may we remember their names. I'm really excited to be back here at the Futures Harvest Conference, and I was even more excited to see that the theme this year was pivot. I pivot basketball player. I thought, okay, do I pivot here? But pivot, grow, care, and grow. Farmers and communities building together. Because I felt that these ideas were central, and still are central to indigenous farming traditions, especially among the Eastern Woodland people, where farming was not just an individual effort, but a shared responsibility. So for a moment, I'd like for you to imagine this. I'd like for you to imagine farming not as a solo effort, like I just said, but something that is done side by side. I want you to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to envision how everyone has a role. I want you to envision elders shared knowledge, families worked fields, and the harvest belonged to the community, not to the individual. Farming was community involvement in its truest form. And this kind of cooperation didn't just feed people, it built trust, resilience, and strong communities. So open your eyes, if you did close them. I can't really close when people say close your eyes. But how do you envision on building trust and resilience and building the strong communities? I find that as farmers, you all here today are now the stewards of the land. The land has passed through stewardship since the time of colonization. When the colonizer came here, they learned from the indigenous people. Then they committed genocide and pushed them off their lands. And then they brought over Africans as slaves. I'm part African, African American, so I feel that. And then they became the stewards of this land, but they also brought their farming practices with them. And so as we move through the community, now we have people from all over who are learning how to work the land here, especially in the DMV area, but you also bring your different farming practices, your different knowledges that are now coming part of the DNA of this soil. I was just talking to Mr. Cook over here, and my fish pepper gentleman over here, who will be speaking on how during that Columbus exchange, we exchanged goods. So like, I'm seeing now soursop is now being sold in the area. I don't know if it's being grown or just shipped, but soursop I learned about when I went to Cat Island as part of my research fellowship is indigenous to the Caribbean, South America. So, but we have people here who are from the Caribbean, who are from South America, who eat these plants and these fruits and this food that they're part of this community. So why not be growing food that feed them, that is to their traditions and to their homelands, and so they can pass down their culture. That's like we said, farming in the community, that is important because we all must know that we're here, we're united, we're learning from each other. And community involvement is essential because everyone has a role and everyone is benefiting. And knowing and caring about the whole community and ensuring food security and passing down knowledge and maintaining balance with the land, that is what is important, especially in today's environment, that we also use sustainable farming practices so this land will be here and be healthy for us to be able to grow food for future generations to come. Because I don't know if we can grow food on the moon, but if we're not taking care of the land here, what makes you think we're going to take care of the land up there? So that's my 2 cents for today. I'm sorry. So again, working together in unity and caring for the land is also caring for the future, but most importantly, it's caring for our survivability. And I'm just so excited to always be a part of this, and I look forward to seeing more younger faces here in the future because we need to encourage our younger people to become farmers. I'm from Southern Maryland, and my parents and my relatives and my aunts and uncles and people from we're all farmers, and we've kind of gotten away from that because we're thinking, oh, you need to be doing computers, you need to be doing that. But computers cannot feed us. So we need to encourage them that it's not a shame to be a farmer, but it's a sense of pride because you are helping to feed people because we need food for sustenance. So in offering words of closing and a blessing that I want to carry on for the beginning of this conference is that let this gathering be a space of mutual respect where reciprocity guides in how you share knowledge and support each other and honor diverse ways of knowing. Indigenous cultures were prosperous because of the practice of reciprocity. Reciprocity signifies a core value based on the principle of giving back and maintaining balanced relationships within the community, with other people, and with the environment. Everyone here is reciprocity in action. Remember, leadership is not domination, but listening, not control, but care. And may you follow these examples by learning, sharing, and building community together. And may your time together here be a time to celebrate the power of resilience, not just to survive, but to thrive, and to inspire future generations grounded in justice, tradition, collaboration, harmony, and love. So if you are comfortable and able, I would like you to stand because I want to have you repeat after me this pledge that I kind of put together for you all today as kind of a guiding knowledge. So if you repeat after me, with respect for the land, we open our hearts. With gratitude for our elders, we walk with purpose. With love and grace for ourselves and others. We share love. With courage and care. We move forward together. Thank you. You can be seated. So, again, thank you to Future Harvest for having me today. I'm going to give a special shout out to Vanessa Bolin, my sister who couldn't be here today. She's ill, so when she sees this video, I'm sending love. And also to my cousin, Monica, thank you for doing your part to keep our Piscataway traditions alive. And just have a great conference. And this Wanishi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Hope. It means so much to us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and vision with us. Your words remind us that the work we do on our farms, in our communities, and in our food systems is rooted in the care, stewardship, and knowledge of the land and the people who have tended it for generations. I'm joined by Thelonious Cook, who is the president of Future Harvest. And Future Harvest is proud to present this gift to you. These are products from farmers in this region who are honored to steward this land. Thank you for joining us and sharing your great wisdom with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that was okay. Absolutely. Okay, my stuff. Okay. Dr. Pepper will be happy.
All right. Again, thank you very much. And it's such a pleasure to be here with you all. And we're very excited to begin with our Origins of Regenerative Agriculture panel. The work of regenerating our landscapes and communities continues with those who are actively tending the land today. Today's keynote, the Origins of Regenerative Agriculture panel, brings together farmers and food system leaders who are restoring soil health, building resilient communities, and creating models of a more just and sustainable food system. Their experiences show us what's possible when knowledge, care, and innovation come together to transform the land and the lives that it supports. Denzel Mitchell Jr. has served as an educator, organizer, cook, librarian, and farmer. In 2012, he completed the Future Harvest Beginning Farmer Training Program. He and his family operated 5 Seeds farms from 2008 to 2016. Denzel is known for reviving the nearly forgotten heirloom, Baltimore's fish pepper, back to the Chesapeake region's culinary palate. Denzel has mentored and shared his experiences throughout the region. He has organized farmers markets and advised others on starting small farms, community gardens, food co-ops, and food businesses around the region. He's a board member at Future Harvest. Please join me in welcoming Denzel Mitchell Jr. to the stage. We're also joined by a group of remarkable farmers and food system leaders who are actively implementing regenerative practices in their work. Each brings a unique perspective from building community-centered farms to creating economic opportunities and strengthening local food systems. And Denzel is going to help us welcome our panelists.
Is this on? Here we go. Hi. So good to see y'all. Can y'all come up here? Yes, give them a round of applause. So, as Grace graciously said, I'm Denzel. I'm so glad to be in this room. I've been coming to this conference for a very, very long time, and it looks very different than when I first started coming, and I'm so happy about that, and I'm glad that we have this opportunity to sit down and talk about how we're all coming together to make a better planet. So here to my left is Henrietta Isaboke. Henrietta is a seasoned agricultural leader with more than 15 years of experience in farming, operations, community engagement, and program development. She serves as Director of Agricultural Programs and Operations at AfriThrive Incorporated. Henrietta previously served as Executive Director of World Farmers Incorporated, where she supported more than 350 immigrant and refugee farmers across Massachusetts. She also manages her family's farm, Lexava Farms, where she transformed a small subsistence venture into a thriving commercial operation. Henrietta also holds a master's degree in public health, which informs her deep commitment to promoting the principle that food is medicine. Give it up for Henrietta. My dear friend Gail Taylor is a founder of 3 Part Harmony Farm in Washington, D.C., and co-owner of Spice Creek Enterprise and Brandywine, and one of my personal mentors and inspirations. She spent her early childhood years in Illinois surrounded by corn and soybean fields, but has dedicated her life to growing high-quality, nutrient-dense vegetables for her community in D.C. and Prince George's County, Maryland, because everyone deserves to eat good food. And homie Kenny Bridgers. Kenny Bridgers is a student and steward of the land. He's a farmer and a father of three, a naturalist with a deep passion for herbalism and the use of food as medicine. Since 2021, he has cultivated land and community at the urban farm at the Well at Oxenrun Park, which is powered by DC Green and Ward 8, Southeast DC, where he and his family are from. Kenny views urban agriculture as both a healing practice and a tool for individual and collective growth. Kenny is also a business owner facilitating intentional food distribution across the region. He's where you get the watermelons from. Shout out to Kenny. So I really appreciate Future Harvest asking for me to host this panel, moderate this discussion. Obviously, regenerative agriculture, as a term that's thrown around in every household and on TV now, means something very different to a lot of people in this room. And it's really about what our practices are, what our choices are, and what we're doing to shift what capitalism and what the ag conglomerates have done over the last 60, 70 years. So we understand that regenerative agriculture was a coined term by the Rodale Institute in the 1980s, but I think to this group of people, this means a lot more. I'll say for myself that George Washington Carver was a central figure in this movement, my understanding of how to commune with the earth and how to grow food. And a lot of the people that mentored and taught me showed those practices that were based in traditional and indigenous wisdom. So I just want to have an informal conversation. I got a bunch of questions to ask y'all to share your experiences. And we could just talk, and then there's about some time left to ask questions. So first, all three of you, when you think about the term regenerative agriculture, what does it mean to you?
Good morning, Future Harvest Conference. I hope we are all having a great morning, and I'm happy to be here. For me, what regenerative agriculture means, it means it's a way of us taking care of the land. So a way of us giving back to the land rather than taking away from it. We're so used to taking away from the land. We plant, we plant again, it gives back. So for me, regenerative agriculture is a way for us to give back to the earth, to replenish it, to make it better for tomorrow.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for the question. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I think regenerative agriculture is the word that we use right now to describe what we do. You know, I've been farming for over 20 years, and we used to call it sustainable agriculture. Sometimes we called it organic farming. Before that, they called it something different. Our children will call it something different. It's just a word that we use right now to talk about something that we've been doing and will continue doing, right? Because it's hard to put a word to what we do, and people want to put definitions on things, and so that's what we call it, regenerative agriculture. What I do personally is have a relationship with the land, have a relationship with plants, have a relationship with people in my community, and I try to bring all those things together because, as you said in the introduction, I like to eat good food, and I want everyone else around me to be able to eat good food. And thinking about it in the future of, I agree. I don't know if we can grow food on the moon or on Mars, but it's a moot point as far as I'm concerned if we don't take care of this land here that's underneath our feet. So for me, it's just, this is the hip term we use now. if they change it in a few years, I'm going to be doing the same thing.
Let's give thanks for your response. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Grateful to be here. Regenerative ag, again, is, about relationship building, recognizing that we come from the land. The land is an extension of our physical bodies, and so you take care of the land the same way that you would take care of yourself. And that's kind of like been my philosophy as I've grown into the agricultural space. I'm probably the baby up here in terms of tenure when it comes to tending to the land. But similar to what my counterparts have mentioned, it's really about understanding your relationship and feeding that relationship because it feeds you. So reciprocity is, key in my perspective on regenerative ag. And then just, also you treat others and the land the way that you want to be treated. And so that's kind of like been my philosophy as I've gotten deeper into this work.
Thank you. Yeah, I would totally agree. And for me, the relationship to the land has developed some very specific practices, practices that have been passed down, practices that were intentionally taught from my mentors and teachers. A lot of folks are out in the audience today. And as you said, Gail, this is just stuff that people were already doing. There's now a name to it, right? Folks were planting a Three Sisters crop. Now we call that intercropping. Folks were planting a trap crop or a cover, what we now consider a cover crop. Just we're planting this to cover the soil. We're going to terminate it because it's going to rebuild the soil. So this is practices that we've always had. Is there any specific practices that you all remember from when you were younger or from when you were spending time in the fields before you became a professional that somebody passed on to you and it was just this is what they did, but now you understand it to be deeply ecological?
Yeah, I would say composting is one of those aspects. Taking your outputs and turning those back into inputs for your field is a critical aspect of regenerative ag that I've been trying to concentrate a little bit more in depth. So that's one aspect that I would speak to. Clearing the fields as opposed to clearing the fields, or uprooting those crops once they're done, laying them in your rows and allowing them to decompose in the same space where they grew to return those nutrients back into the soil. Are some of the practices that we use at the farm where I facilitate work.
Right
on. For me personally, I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge of the farming in my family. I'm a return generation farmer. I started in my mid-20s, and almost 100% of what I know about being a farmer and growing food came from that experience, which was primarily in one place. So when I think about stories I heard or things that I know that I absorbed as a child, the thing that comes to me is not like something you did to grow food, because I don't know that, and I don't know if my aunts and uncles know that. That's the generation that skipped farming in my family. But what I do remember they talked about all the time is my grandfather in Waterloo, Iowa. He saved money and he bought the empty lot either next door or across the street. I can't remember which one. And all of my aunts and uncles and great aunts and cousins, they just talk about how every year he would plant the garden and he would give food to anyone who was walking by. So I think more than the farming that got passed in my family, it was just this idea of like having food and sharing it was a really big thing. And I think, there's science and there's soil and there are all these things we do, but it's really, for me, that's where we come around the table is where it starts for me and where it in the circle ends for me too. So that's really what I remember. Those lessons learned is just, he had corn, I guess, and he would give corn to the neighbors.
So for me, the experience is a little different. I grew up in rural eastern part of Kenya, and farming was part of our daily life. It was not just crops, it was animals. Everything we ate, 95% came from the land that we were living in. So one thing that I always remember, even as a kid, I was at the farm probably at the age of 1 because nobody was home to watch me. So kids are home are at the farm with the families. That's the routine. But as I started recognizing what people were doing, one thing that I remember vividly is when we grew like corn, we grew corn and beans in the same hole. It wasn't like that field is for corn, that field is for beans, that field is for something else. So that poly growing, where we're growing many things together, that's a practice that was embedded in me as a kid. I don't know if it's because we had small spaces in land and many mouths to feed, but that's something that always happened. And one thing that I'm realizing as I'm going back home is a lot of those practices of intercropping don't happen anymore. Land is even more scarce, so you have people that are concentrating, they're growing on those cash crops that could bring some sort of income, and they forget the old ways of doing things. And in relation to that, you find that much of the land does not produce as good as it used to. So it came to where I was asking myself, is it because we are getting away from the traditional ways of growing, or is it because the need for cash is sort of taking us away from the traditional ways of growing, which took care of the land?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I need to pause. That was a very powerful response. Thank you. To that point, I would say that all of us kind of have this familial memory or familial relationship with land and land stewardship and growing, whether it was an elder in the community or an aunt, an uncle who did some gardening and maybe planted the seed for us. But for what, in my experience, many of our homes, land was looked at as a member of the family, or was looked at as a part of our connection to previous generations and future generations, rather than being a commodity. And that's changed for us a lot here, specifically in the United States, in the way that land is something that you can now buy, sell, and you use it to make money. And so it's gotten to be very complicated. And I think one of the ways that we all approach the food system is how is this intrinsic to what we do in our lives and how we represent ourselves in the world. And I'm just wondering, is there a way, or do you believe that there's a way to reestablish younger people's and the next generation's connection to the land, more than it being a commodity, but something that needs to be valued and held and shared and kept?
Going off of what I was saying, that back a few years ago, like I want to say 15 years ago or less, the land, especially for me, is where my food came from. That's where everything came from. Land in those areas is considered part of the community, like you're not allowed to sell your ancestral land, right? Because that's part of the generation. That's part of what you're passing on to the next generation. So I find that as we start looking at what are we gaining from the land, we get away from that relational part, that interpersonal relationship with the land, where we're like, oh, I'm just going to grow here, I'm gonna get what I need from it, I'm gonna move on. But I feel like if we start thinking of even just the way we relate to the land, instead of saying, for example, or we are going to use the land, you say we are part of the land. So we start looking at things around us. Really, essentially, it's everything. Without land, we don't have anything, right? So we start thinking of how can we make this better? how can we take care of the land better so that it's there in the next 3 generations rather than the harmful practices that we have all been learning, that there are certain chemicals, yes, they might be better for production output, but in the long run, it is destroying the land. So putting ourselves in that, like you had said earlier, you should treat the land like you want to be treated. So land is a living thing. And the sooner we start looking at it as a living thing, we have people that are protecting animal rights, right? So as farmers, we should be protecting the land and actually being very intentional in what we are putting it in our reference to the land, in just everything we do as we are having conversations with the new generations, making sure that they understand that our ancestors are or continue to grow because they were able to utilize the land. And if we don't take care of it, they don't make any more land. No matter, they will make many of the things that we use the cash to buy, but there's no more land. So we have to be very intentional. We have to take extra special care of it because there's no more. And that's, I feel like that is the beginning stages of reconnecting back to the land and making it part of ourselves rather than part of something that's doing something for us.
Yes, thank you.
I would like to add some feedback to that as well. When we embarked on initiating a project at the well at Oxen Run, which is powered by DC Greens, you know, it was a very spiritual and magical experience and very intentional. And so I first would say with reconnecting to the land, it's about slowing down and absorbing and really appreciating this life that we have, because this is the only one that we get, and it's unfolding before us at every breath and every step that we take. And to acknowledge that and to really sit in that how did we get here, you know, and then to release that question and to acknowledge that it doesn't matter how we got here, we're all here right now in this and having this experience, and that it's so much love within that. That kind of, like, for me, takes out the speed of worrying about the production time and, you know, what I can turn this product into this type of currency or whatever. So it's really about taking a moment to reflect and understand that this is a magical experience that we're having and it's unfolding right before us, and to communicate with the land about that, to acknowledge your thanks and your appreciation for the current state that you're in, and giving thanks for the yields and all of the things that you know will come, because we're having this experience and it continues to unfold and it continues to show us that we will be taken care of if we position ourselves in alignment with the work. I think that's one of the ways in which you kind of reconnect and you reestablish that connection to the land. And so what that looked like for us at the well was, you know, we pour libation. We call on our ancestors. We acknowledge the community and the presence of the indigenous people who worked and existed on the land before we came, and then setting intentions about what we want to see happen here in this space. And that was a very intentional experience for me and for the community in 2021 when we went to break ground at the well. You know, it was things like that that we had to be mindful of. It's not about, we changed the concept from breaking ground to ground opening, right? This is not a groundbreaking ceremony. This is a ground opening ceremony, which allows for us to commune and pour into, right? Breaking, that speaks to damage that you may be causing, or et cetera. So it's like that level of intentionality gets reflected back to you over time as you continue to pour into. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, this, you know, back to your point, Gail, and what you're saying, Kenny, this is not new. Regenerative agriculture is not a new thing. We now understand the value of the way we approach our relationship to the land and stewarding the land and working in partnership with the land to produce food and all the other things that we need produced, because all of us got to eat every single day. But I do want to give a moment, especially because you lifted it up. Who are some of the people who inspired you to do what you do? Who are some of the people that you can share with the folks that may not know? Who were the progenitors of what we now call regenerative agriculture? Who inspires us?
Well, I'll say first that I have to give kudos to a brother who put me into this space. I come from a social service background, public health. I had no idea that I would become a farmer in this life. You know, I grew up in Southeast and on the borderline of PG County. Land wasn't a thing that I even thought about. I grew up in apartments, you know. I don't know how I got here, truthfully, but I'm grateful, you know what I mean? Like, I'm extremely grateful that I'm here. And so I give kudos to the gentleman who introduced me into this work, Eugene Yarbrough. Some of you all may or may not know him.
Yes.
And it's his aunts who really embedded in me the purposeful living that I show up in today. And so I give thanks for them as well. The aunties. Paulette Green and Donna Deere. Those are people that I'm sure most folks know in this room if you've come through black agricultural space within on the Eastern Shore, you know. So those two people I would like to acknowledge in this moment.
That's great. George
Washington Carver, as you have spoke on. Those are folks who come up for me in this moment. And Artimenta Harriet Tubman, you know. I learned how to farm on that land in the Eastern Shore. And so I carry her spirit with me throughout all of the work that I do. And I brought a lot of what I learned from the Eastern Shore and from the aunties down to the city in Southeast. And I share that with community. And yeah, I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Shout out to the aunties. Do you want to?
Go ahead.
I was going to say that really the people that I give credit for all this mainly is my mother. So, like I said, we migrated to this country, and I remember vividly when I think it was in 8th grade, and we had gone to get milk from a dairy farm. And my mother saw there was some pigweed. We call it amaranth, which is pigweed, was growing. And my mother was adamant. She's like, I'm going to go ask the owner to pick some of the pigweed from here. And she went, she asked, she got some. The next day, she's like, we are going back. I'm going to ask if we can grow some crops right next to her barn. I'm like, Mom. She's like, you're coming. So we go, and she spoke to the owner again, and the owner introduced her to a piece of land that actually her family had put aside because there were so many immigrant and refugee farmers in the area. So prior to the African immigration in early 2000s, there were refugees from Southeast Asia displaced from the Vietnam War, and a lot of them were located back in Massachusetts. And so as a dairy farmer, a lot of these immigrants were going to the farm trying to get fresh milk. Then they will see the pigweed, and they're like, can we have some? So it became such a common thing for her that she and her husband decided to put aside 70 acres of their land, and they were just giving it to people as they were coming. And this was before even this organization turned into an organization. It was just one immigrant farmer assisting refugee farmers because she understood the importance of land and how hard it was to get it. So long story short, in 2004, we were officially on the land farming, and it became part of my daily routine. At 8th grade, I'm like, I thought I left farming in Africa. Why are you making me farm over here? She's like, well, wait and see. Then she was growing and just giving it out, and just I'm taking this moment to acknowledge that if it wasn't for this lady, Maria Morera, and her family deciding that they're going to set aside a piece of the land because they were privileged to get it, then all these people that were coming to them to ask for somewhere to grow were most likely not going to have a place to grow. And just from that gesture alone, they were able to feed thousands of people. So I think the two people is my mother and Maria Morera, who's the immigrant farmer, shared her land.
Well, my mentor is in this room, so I have to at least start by acknowledging Carrie Vaughn, who taught me everything I know. I always say that. The first time that I went to volunteer at Claggett, my friends who worked there, it was their day off, and I had just decided that I was going to do it anyway because I had put it off for so long. So I put my bike on the metro and rode my bike from the Greenbelt or Suitland metro station. Is 9 miles or however long, and I got lost. And I showed up and I hadn't eaten breakfast, and I don't know how Carrie knew, but we were weeding this long row of broccoli, and she walked over to the melons in the field next door to us, and she brought one over. She took her pocket knife out, cut it open, and gave me some, and it was this sugar. It just really helped me. That was my first day volunteering at a farm that I eventually worked at for 5 seasons before going off to start 3-Part Harmony Farm. And all of the people who I met there and everything that I learned there has just had such an impactful, continues to be the most impactful thing that really has established my entire farming career. It's impossible not to start with that. Yeah. But for me, before I got there that day, I had spent an entire career all the way from the late teens to the ripe old age of 24 in the social justice movement in DC. And so when I think about myself growing food for people, it's sort of like what I do in the community, just like some people are teachers or some people are parents, or lots of people do different things in our community to keep our families and our friends healthy. And my thing is I grow food. But I think really for me, the foundation, the inspiration for me is thinking back about all of those civil rights leaders and all of the people who have made positive change in the world that we take for granted today, people who fought to get us an 8-hour workday, even though we don't work only 8 hours, but people fought for that. A 40-hour work week, it didn't used to be a thing. I'm sorry?
A lunch break.
A lunch break, the labor rights, voting rights, all the women's rights, all these things. And so, I've been thinking a lot about Assata Shakur these last several months, and those are the kind of people. I know that's not what you expected.
That is what I was. Yes, that's what I was expecting. Thank you.
Those are who I look up to. Fannie Lou Hamer. I think that our job is to organize farmers, to organize ourselves, to organize our communities, so that it can be better for ourselves and the future generations. And so my role in that happens to be growing vegetables, But I see myself sort of on par with, I shouldn't say that. Obviously, I don't see myself on par with those leaders.
You're a visionary. You
but
are
I
on par
aspire
with those
to
leaders.
one day.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I said. Your legacy will live far beyond you. You know that for sure. I'm sure there's several people in this room right now that will certainly give you that credit, and we appreciate you being here. We appreciate what you've done. We appreciate what you're going to do, and we appreciate the inspiration and legacy that you've left for all of us. So yeah, you are on par. To that point, as we're kind of talking about our impact and those of us who impacted us, I just want you to vision and imagine very quickly, as if we were children, if there was an ancestor that you could introduce to your work and in some ways reintroduce, who would that person be and what would you show them? It could be anybody.
I wish that I could bring my grandmother, Mildred, to see what I'm doing now. When I was, I don't know, maybe 11, 12, we were at a family reunion outside in a park, and my grandma came. I think it was actually my mom's side of the family reunion, but my dad's mom came to pick us up to go somewhere, and there was a baseball bat, and I remember she picked up the bat and she taught me how to stand. I was getting ready to start playing softball. She taught me how to swing a bat, and this just blew my mind. This was a very petite woman who I never saw wear anything other than like a blouse and a skirt that would be like really hiked up high. And she had like 3 jobs, and one of them was the side job of selling Avon, which she sold out of her car to make money on the side from her other jobs. She sold Avon. Yes, exactly. Skin So Soft.
Right.
Actually works against mosquitoes.
It does.
Anyway, it was one of those moments, do you ever have those moments where there's an elder and you thought that they were all these things, and then something happens and you're like, oh, you are a whole other person. Yes. And I wish I had had more time with her, and I would love to be able to show her what I'm doing and ask her for advice, what she thinks about it, anything.
Same to y'all. Same question, y'all.
For me, I think it will be my maternal grandfather. So I spent a lot of time in his home growing up, and I saw that he used to be an avid farmer. He was a great farmer in his time. And he used this farming to educate all 11 of his kids. And he would always tell me, you need to grow up, become a doctor. Grow up, become a doctor. Like, that's what used to be in his mind. So I, too, don't know how farming found me and how I got into this field, this deep into it. But I think he will be shocked that farming is my livelihood, and a lot of my inspiration comes from what I saw him doing as a young kid. And I think he will be most proud of the fact that I did not forget what I used to see growing up. And even though he wanted me to be a doctor, it will be amazing for him to know that you can make a good living in the agricultural space.
And teaching people that
Food is medicine.
And teaching people that food is medicine. Absolutely.
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
I would like to walk the fields with my grandmother, Louise Payne, and her husband, my grandfather, James Payne. The well is situated on Valley Avenue and at the intersection of Atlantic Street. And my grandparents raised my mother and her siblings on Atlantic Street, or First and Atlantic. And so for me to return back to that space and to be able to serve the land and be a steward, I truly feel like, I was called, and, I'm grateful to have answered the call, and I would love for my grandmother and grandfather to walk with me down those roads and just, really see that, showed up. I was working on the land in the Eastern Shore, and I was probably doing that for like 2 years. And I said, man, if I could just do this 10 minutes away from where I live, oh, that would be so great.
Right.
And then a family friend of mine sent me an opportunity with DC Greens, and it manifested and it unfolded. And I literally worked 5 minutes away, walking distance from where my grandparents raised my family. And, so to do this work in that space is very purposeful and intentional for me, and I don't take it as like just a job or a thing that I've, came into. It's my purpose, is what I was called to do. And, I would love for them. I know they see and see and watching me. That's how we got to where we are now, but yeah, to sit with them would be amazing.
Absolutely. How are you passing on joy in this work? other than a beautiful smile, how are you inspiring the next generation and making it look cool so that the young people will be like, I want to be a farmer too?
Well,
You got 3 kids.
Yeah, so we pop slick. Like, you know, on the farm, I'm that guy. Like, and I say that humbly, because, you know, I think you have to have a certain level of confidence in whatever it is that you're doing, and that exudes in just like your personality and your spirit. And I try to allow that to reflect in the interactions that I have with the young people in the community, through the schools that come and visit, through the volunteers who come to get their community service hours for school and things of that nature. I just try to really be grounded in myself and show them that I'm from where you're from, but and I know what you know, but we can transmute it and turn it into something that works for the greater good. Just sit.
And this is joyous work.
Yeah,
this is joyous work. I mean, as you said, I'm super grateful to be able to put my hands in the dirt or share some knowledge that another famous farmer in the area passed to me that I can now pass off to somebody else. That's a lot of fun. But I don't want to take y'all. What brings you joy?
What brings me joy?
What brings
or
you joy in the work? How do you find joy in this work?
Oh, just being by myself and putting my hands in the soil. I think especially if the farm in DC is just so visible because you can ride your bike, walk by, take public transportation, it's right there. And Friday, Saturday night, after everybody else has gone home, I'm there, lock myself in the gates till it gets dark, listening to music. That's like, all the other parts are fun, but it's work.
Yes.
The not work, the fun part is when you get to go and do whatever you want to do until you have to go home because it's dark. That's what brings me the most joy, actually. No shade on any of my coworkers or anything, but when I'm there just with the plants is when it's the most fun.
For me, is the excitement that people get when they see the indigenous vegetables freshly grown locally. And a lot of diasporans, not just Africans or Latin Americans, but they bring vegetables that are dried in their suitcases into the country because they don't know where to get these vegetables, right? So when I'm at a farmer's market or when I'm doing a marketing video and I'm showing people the vegetables that they were used to back in their different countries, that's what brings me joy. Like I have a couple customers that drive like 2 hours, just come to the farm just to harvest for themselves. They will call, they're like, can we come and help? I say, yeah. In my head, I'm like, oh, free labor. And they're like, oh, great, we have some managus. I haven't had this fresh from a farm in 5 years or 4 years or whatever, many months that they have gone. So just having what people can relate to available is what brings me the most joy and those reactions.
Can I also add one other thing? I would also say from an urban ag perspective, like one of the things that I try to like conceptualize as a farmer is, farming is art is life, so I try to look at the farm as like my canvas and myself as an artist, and we're creating an art exhibit for a community to actually experience and enjoy, and that kind of changes my perspective and me conveying that to community that, this work is, it's about production, it's about all of those things, but we're creating a canvas with the flower choice, with the flowers that we choose, the pollinators that we choose, the different crops that we choose, the placements, all of these things, that's intentionality, and it brings about a level of beauty and joy once it's reflected back to you throughout the season. So that would be another thing too.
Thank you. So I just got one more question and we can open it up to the audience. How do you want your legacy in your work to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
Gosh, I just hope that the legacy is that it keeps going, you know, in some way. I think a really hard thing in this work is to see elders transition from the work and houses pop up.
Yeah.
So I think the greatest gift for me would be to be able to work hard enough and create some sense of permanence that the next generation can continue that on.
That's real. Thank you.
For myself, one thing that I've been a bit more intentional with is teaching people about the medicinal values of the indigenous vegetables that we grow. Like there's vegetable to increase milk in mothers, there's vegetables to control your blood sugars, there's vegetables, you name it, there's something for it. So at least being able to continue that knowledge and maybe someday have it in a publicized book or something where we can collaborate with other indigenous vegetable growers and maybe get a school to do research on these vegetables. That's a journey that excites me, and hopefully it'll become a reality one day.
I would say for me, my perspective is on that is I've come into this awareness that every person that you come into contact with has a different interaction of who you are, and they see you differently. And so you're interacting with people on multiple different frequencies, and their memory of you is something that you don't have any control over. And so I try to release that from my perspective. If I focus on doing the work and I show up authentically and genuinely in the work that I'm doing, you know, that legacy or, you know, what people think of or what carries on will be something that's true and everlasting. And so I just try to be in this moment and do the best that I can in this moment and make those moments continual. And so hopefully that consistency reflects back to the people who experience me in a positive way, truthfully.
Thank you. Thank you. That was beautiful. We'll open it up for questions. Anybody got any questions for the illustrious guest? Not you. No, I'm kidding. I'm playing. Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sage Dillard, and I am the founder and owner of Sajida Urban Farm in Baltimore City. I have two questions. Thank you. The first is for Gail. You said something that touched me to my core. My favorite part of being an urban farmer, in my opinion, is being by myself. How do you foster that? Like, outside of you locking your gate and stuff like that, how are you making sure that you get that time to yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. How do I make sure that I have time for myself? Outside of the farm, I think I'm notorious for just not going out. I bet there's a lot of people in this room who have thought that you would see me at some social event and I wasn't there. And it's because I was at yoga class or definitely guarding my sleep. I find being at an urban farm is very resource extractive. There's just so many people all the time. There's just a lot going on. And so when I am away, then I need to be by myself. And I don't mince words with that. I just say no a lot. I notice it's the opposite with people who are farming in a rural environment. If there's a potluck, you're there. Yeah. But like on a Tuesday, I just talked to 25 people, and that's only staff, volunteers, the people who come to pick up the vegetable donations, and whatever other random passersby. That's a lot of, you know, talking and interaction, and everybody is waiting for me to say what to do next. So yeah, I like to turn myself off, and that's why also I like to, when everyone goes home, then I can work, and I do that by myself. I find this is like a very selfish and egotistical thing. The idea that you want to start your own farm, I think is like, you know, why? Why would you do that? There's so many people doing this and it's so hard. But one of the greatest things to me about being self-employed, about being your boss, is you can work as many damn hours as you want to. So, you know, what's a 12-hour day? What's a 14-hour day? If the last 5 of them, I was replenishing that I lost during the day. I need that. I don't know if that answers your question.
It
but,
does.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Just say no.
I appreciate that. That was good. I would say my second question, you guys talked a lot about the good of farming. What's one thing that you would tell a young farmer not to do?
Great question. Great.
Oh, I got to take this one too. Because first of all, don't do it alone. And second of all, don't think that you did 1 year working at a farm and that's enough. This is like, try to think how to say this in a nice way. Yeah, you don't know anything.
You an auntie now, Gail. You can say it however you want to say it.
You don't, after 1 year, you know nothing. After 2 years, you only know a little bit. You know, I stayed 5 years at the same place, and I still didn't know enough and decided to start my own farm. And I still had my mentor on speed dial. We'd be texting her from the field, like, how do I do this? What do I do about that? Unless you're somebody who had the privilege of growing up on a farm and collecting eggs when you were 3, which most of us unfortunately don't have that story, you need to stay somewhere, you need to learn something, you need to go somewhere else and learn something, and wait a long time before you think that you can just go out on your own. And hopefully during that time you found somebody to do it with.
Say that.
To add to what you said is, don't get comfortable, or like don't have this ideal of what you want to bring into the space, because you could have it today and then tomorrow is completely different. So in order to not get disappointed, just be open-minded and be willing to learn, because this space is evolving every single day. And if you're willing to learn, there's a lot of people out there. They might not be in the space physically, but they might just be passing by. You can just take so much knowledge from conversation. So just having that openness.
Thank you. Yes, Claudia. I can repeat it if you want. You can yell it. I can probably hear. Come on. Come on down. You're the next contestant. Ask the farmers. Somebody else had their hand up. You should go ahead and get in line behind Claudia, maybe. How much time do we have left? 15? All right, let's rock.
Hello, my name is Claudia. I work with the Farm Alliance of Baltimore. And
I did not plant these people, okay? They're young, curious, young people, yeah, amazing, invigorating, inspired people.
so a lot of what you guys were saying that really touched me was more on a spiritual level, like your spiritual connection to the land and how you manage your farm. So my question is, what are some ways you incorporate your spirituality in your daily farming practices and manage a farm holistically?
I'd like to answer that question. Very intentional about the work, right? And so the way that the well is structured is, it's in Oxen Run Park. It's about an acre of a space in Oxen Run Park, and it's enclosed in a gate, right? And so that's a sanctuary for me and for the people who help us facilitate the work in that space. And so before you even enter into that space, we put up what we called an altar, you know, so being intentional about the energy that you bring into the space and also being mindful about what you carry with you when you leave. We do spiritual baths. Before you enter into the space, you should cleanse yourself. You should be mindful and set your intention, and then you walk into that space with that intentionality. That's one aspect of the work that we do. When we're planting seeds, I'd say every seed is a prayer, so being intentional about the energy that you're putting into the soil, and visualizing the return on what you expect from that crop or from that prayer that you just put in, So every aspect of the work, when you're watering, that's a libation. So speaking over your plants as you're watering them, you're putting intention into the soil that the plants didn't receive. We all know that water is a house, right? We've seen the studies that say you can speak positively to water and it impacts the stimulus that is touching, or you can speak negatively to water and you can also see the reflections of that as well. So every aspect of it is spiritual indeed. And having that type of mindfulness as you go into the work is great. It's not always the case, but try to at least have those intentions and carry that, and then express that to your community as they come in to assist and help, and then they carry that forward into their safe spaces and sanctuaries.
Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day, whatever time it is. Hi, everyone. My name is Tayree. I'm from Patterson High School. I brought some of my students with me here today. So in terms of legacy building, I have some students who really seem excited about growing, and so that makes me excited. I've been growing for 10 years, and hopefully we will be able to put in a garden at Patterson. So anybody who has ideas and funding and all that stuff, come see us. My question is based on some issues I had growing and how those issues may come up as we plant on that soil. So in Maryland, if you've grown here, we got that clay problem. And I have a lot of clay zones. And I found it difficult to amend the size space I was working with. And so I ordered what was supposed to be garden-enriched soil and got what really amounted to was 9 cubic yards. If you don't know what that is, it's like a whole dump truck of like construction site landfill. It was not good soil at all. And it killed my growing year. Like the level of confidence I had was wiped out when the only thing that would grow is beans. And we know why that is, because they have their own nitrogen stores, right? So you've talked about growing in Eastern Shore and inner city. You've talked about growing in multiple states. You've talked about growing in Africa and here in America. Can you talk to me about soil health and how that impacted your growing in different places? Especially for
I don't know if we can unpack all that in 10 minutes. Because each one of us, all the four of us, if we answer that question, you're going to get 6 different answers. However, what I will say is I'm sure there is a soil health workshop happening this week. Yeah. And there are soil experts sitting around in this room right now. I'm looking at many of them in their eyes. Y'all should connect with this sister and help her with her soil.
All day. I'm just saying.
All right. The work of regenerative agriculture is not necessarily growing vegetables, it is growing soil. And so that is ongoing work, and all of the practices that these folks employ, that we employ, that this whole room employs, is really to build soil. That is the basis of the work. And so that's a big question to answer, and I can give you 10 minutes later. Maybe they can give you 10 each, so that's 40 minutes. But there's a couple of books that I would also recommend.
I work at a high school, I'm just saying. Come give me my 10 minutes at my school.
There's 2 SARE texts that I would also recommend to you as well. So I'll find you.
I was going to ask if you've ever done like the Master Gardener's class or yeah.
I am a Master Gardener.
Okay, so I would say that group is going to be who you want to ask this question to, because you need more than a time on a panel answer.
Yeah.
But And if it makes you feel better, I had clay at the farm on 4th Street. When I got there, we turned over the Dr. Amin came and plowed over the soccer field, and it took me 10 years until I felt like I had soil. So you can't, it's not going to happen overnight, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a commercial to make and also just praise this panel. The commercial is that my name is Tony Sarmiento, and I'm on the board of the Charles Coiner Conservancy for Urban Farming. I hope that anyone interested in urban farming or anybody would want to come to our workshop tomorrow afternoon. And then at 3 o'clock, we're walking over. Our farm's only about 3 blocks away. And I think we're having beer and apple cider. So I'm sorry if other people who have competing workshops may not be serving refreshments. So the praise is, Brother Denzel, I think you should make more explicit what you said at the very beginning, how this conference is very different than prior years. Mm-hmm. I've been coming for probably 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And it's amazing how diverse the audience is, as well as this great panel.
Yes.
And I wonder if Grace might, and people on the board, as well as other panelists, might uncover what all the hard work that took place to be able to achieve what I think this conference represents. And finally, the last question about red clay. So my parents were both born and raised in the Philippines, and rather than go back, my father and mother decided to stay here in D.C., and we moved off of an upper northwest D.C. Chevy Chase, and my father discovers red clay soil in our backyard, and here it is, 1958. We broke the block, and I just wanted to fit in, and here's my father building a compost heap in our backyard, the only one of our neighbors who had a compost heap. And I remember thinking to myself, really? Do we have to do this, or can't we just try to fit in? I mean, come on. But that was my introduction, plus shoveling horse manure every Saturday. That was my introduction to farming and gardening. But please say more about how you think this organization has been able to achieve in a relatively short period of time the kind of outreach and effectiveness in saying to the diverse communities of DC.
I appreciate
this is
that.
The place.
That's a very powerful point, and so I do want to take just a moment and acknowledge Future Harvest and its staff, many people that I've known for many years, and this board, and all the work that's happened over the last 15 years. Because I came to a Future Harvest conference. My first was in 2011, and the only other brown face at that conference was this one right here. And so a lot of work has been done, and it is beautiful, and it is touching, it's overwhelming to look out into this room and see so many people, and to see so many different faces, and to know that so many folks have done such incredible, impactful work in this region. So shout out to Future Harvest, shout out to you, Grace. And specifically the folks that started the Beginning Farmer Training Program, which is how I got started and got connected to this. I don't know if Jack and Becky Gurley are in the room, but if they are, thank you, because they are one of the core reasons for why I'm sitting here. Kathy, Tipper, you saw earlier. So yeah, Future Harvest has been in this space, and you all have done an incredible amount of work to shift the ag landscape in this region. So thank you very much for that.
I want to also add that Sarah Sohn, who was the director of the Beginning Farmer Training Program for I think 10 years,
Almost 10 years, yeah.
and was my coworker in 2 different places. That time period was really an important part, and I think that point, this room is reflective of that point. Is, the entree for the diversification was attracting younger and beginner farmers, and so I think that also it behooves us to point that out, right? Is like the diversity in the room also skews young.
Yes.
Because beginner farmer doesn't mean young, but in many cases it did.
It did.
And so I think, one thing in the next 10 years or whatever, one thing we really need to be thinking about now is like, how do we take it to the next step, to the next level? Because it's great to bring in a lot of new people and learn those beginning basic skills. But what I was saying before about what I think a powerful legacy for all of us would be is if we can have something that we pass on again, that we don't have that generation get skipped. And it surely will if we don't think about what that next level is.
Hail, farmers and friends. My name is Corey Mendez. I'm visiting from Strength to Love 2 in Baltimore City. In my 1 year of walking as a farmer, it's been a grand experience for me. It's been like a world that has exposed a lot of information and rich and important concepts that should be spread around. My question is just a bit of a short one. How do we expose newer generations to the importance of environmental science and agricultural studies while also trying to combat maybe desensitization? Forgive me, but I hope you get understood the message.
You're asking how to inspire young people in the ecological sciences?
That are with the added debuff of being desensitized in the world.
Wow. Young people. I don't know. Go ahead, Kenny.
No, that was a great question.
Yeah.
And so contextually, I've been farming probably this is like my 8th season. And when we speak about beginner farmers, USDA determines a beginner farmer is one who still, you could be farming for 10 years and you're still a beginner farmer. So, and then I also look at farming as like, I'm 8, you like 20, you like 15, and Denzel, he like an elder in the work, whatever. But to your point, it's about making the experience fun. The farm is it's your club. The farm is your safe space. It's where you play laser tag. It's where you do all of the things that you would do outside of the farm, but in the farm, right? So you have to bring those events, those activities, that energy into the farm space and allow for children to be children. The exposure alone is almost like a backdrop, so don't really focus so much on farming, focus on creating the space that they feel safe in and that they can have fun and be themselves, and then they'll find themselves picking up a trowel to plant a plant or, repot something, It's about creating the experience that we all want to have, which is about belonging and feeling connected, so that's what I would say.
Should those messages be delivered based no matter the age group?
No, those lessons should be delivered all the time to everybody at every moment. And I'll add to that, the one thing to do to make this fun is to close the knowledge gap. Everybody in this room understands that we are at a moment in global history where the way we approach this work is imperative to the survival of human race, is paramount to us losing land. We have to do this. And so one of the ways is just to reduce the amount of specter that these choices come down to what we do every single day. What do we eat? How much water are we drinking? How do we treat a tree when we're walking around outside? How do we look at the animals? And helping kids to understand that food science does in fact translate to the food that you eat and what happens inside your body, and helping them to understand that the work that folks do as food makers, as farmers, is not only about a profession and a business, but it is a way of life, and it is the best way of life, right? That the better way of life is not McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and all of these other extractive companies that are taking so much. It is going to the farmer's market on Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning and buying produce from somebody who looks like your mom or somebody who looks like your dad, and recognizing that this is their work and that you can do this work too, and that they enjoy it and they look good and they feel good and they're healthy, because this is all-encompassing work that requires that you have to have all of these different skills, and that's important because that's how the world survives.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Greetings. I'm currently a high school student, so I'm often around my peers, and it kind of seems like, I'm not in the same.
You weird? You seem
Yeah,
like you're weird.
I'm weird. I'm
You
weird.
are. Be weird. Be weird. That's fine.
Yeah.
Be weird. I can guarantee you, and I'm sure a lot of people can resonate, that the first family member that we said, "I want to be a farmer," what did they say?
They said, boy, you crazy.
Yeah. 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 Sorry to cut you off.
So my question, even though the other guy kind of asked the same question I was trying to ask, my question is, how do we share knowledge with people who don't want to listen? Like,
Well, I'll say my trick was always to cook food. Cook food, tell them where it's from, why did you cook it, what's the story, and have a great meal. And this is the easiest way to break down any barriers, is to sit down with folks and have a good meal. That would be my advice.
okay.
You know, there's a lot more to farming than growing. And I think once we start seeing what people are interested in, there's advocacy. So we need lawyers. We need good lawyers to protect USDA and make sure that resources stay within farming. We need good advocates. We need people who are good communicators, right? Farming, we are busy growing. Sometimes we forget about the systems themselves. We need people within the food systems that will disrupt what is the word? Systems that are sort of putting the farmer down. Because at the end of the day, we can grow all we want to grow. But if we don't have those other aspects of farming, like we don't have the advocacy, we don't have the food scientists, we don't have the soil scientists, then we are breaking a chain somewhere. So you just, you can find what your peers, for example, are interested in, and you can figure out a creative way of weaving farming into it. And that will go a long way, and that will definitely open those spaces, and people will be more open to conversations because they are interested in what you're talking about.
Okay.
I would like to answer your question as well. To you, I would say it's not your responsibility to make other people listen. Your responsibility is to be responsible to yourself and to do what is true to you, and that will exude. People will see that, you will reflect that, and it will attract the people who need what it is that you're building, or who want to work alongside you. You don't have to speak to people who don't want to listen. That was my problem in social services, and I also think that's the issue with like government agency social service work, is that you find yourselves working with people who don't even realize that they need help, or don't even want the help. And so that was traumatic for me, continually trying to show up for folks who didn't show up for themselves. And so when I internalized that and put my hands in the soil and I started to do the work for myself, I started to look around me and I saw that I was attracting the people who either needed help or who could help me. And so that's where I would encourage you to focus your energy, is on being the best person that you can be, being your most true and authentic self, and you will, people who see what you're doing, if they have a question, they will ask you. You don't have to waste your energy with speaking words that falling on deaf ears.
Thank you.
I grew up in Brandywine, Croom area, Upper Marlboro, where back in the 80s, everybody had family members who were farmers. Like even in August when school started, or September, we knew at one point some students would miss school because it was the harvest time for tobacco. And at Gwen Park High School, we had horticulture. Even my father, who was a farmer, bought like his tomato plants and things like that. What do you think the school systems can play, how can they play a role in bringing back kind of like those food sciences or horticulture types of programs? I know people are going back to VOTEC, that went under VOTEC. How do you think we can encourage that? I worked in Fairfax County, and there's governor's school in Virginia, and one governor's schools was agriculture. And sometimes we would encourage students, apply for the agriculture because no one applies for that, and you get to go to governor's school. So I know it sounds like that, but how can we now bring back the school system to kind of be a part of that? I know in Cat Island, they encouraged the horticulture with greenhouses, teaching them food sciences, all the aspects of it. So what do you think kind of outreach we can do to the school system to have them to bring back those practices? I know that was especially in Southern Maryland, but I don't know about the Eastern Shore.
That's a great question, and thank you for all of the work that you do as well. At the well, when we opened, one of the key things that we spoke to was that we had a classroom. And so we would say that, most schools have a garden, but our garden has a school. And so the idea is to, partner with these institutions and open your space up to their curriculum build and, establish some level of partnership in that regard. Not every school has to have a garden in it, but if the school is connected to the community garden and you can facilitate the work in that way, I think that that's an efficient model that could work and be replicated. Building farms with an educational space that allows for people to visit and see themselves in an educational environment, not just a farm. I think is the one way you can change that perception.
Any more questions? We're over time? Over time. All right. Time. Denzel, shut up. So give a round of applause to...
We cannot thank you all enough. That was wonderful. We were going to gladly let that keep on going, and we do have gifts to thank you all so much. Oh, thank you. Wasn't that great? Thank you so much to our panelists. It's inspiring to be here among you all. It's an honor to be here. We're so glad you're here. I do have a few announcements. We hope you leave the session with new insights, ideas, and connections to carry you into your work on the land and in your communities. And we're delighted today that our food reflects the land that we're all working. We're so pleased to work with Green Plate Catering. They use local food from local farmers. So do check your program and see who those farmers are. Thank you to all of you for providing the food. I'm also grateful that Green Plate makes it so we have almost no waste. We had like a tiny bag at the end of last year. So delighted that we're able to provide you with local food, waste-free. And your menu today is fennel poached Varlasso salmon bowl, seasonal lettuce, sorghum, quinoa, roasted golden beets, all kinds of good stuff. We have falafel bowls. We have grilled organic chicken bowls. So please have a wonderful local meal in the tent. Let's please make sure our vegans and vegetarians get the falafel option before the rest of us, so just be thoughtful of that. Later today, we're going to have a happy hour at 5 p.m. I hope you join us for that. We're going to have a cooking demo by Chef John Shields of Gertrude's and Our Common Table and Chesapeake Bites. He will be cooking with grass-fed products, and he'll be teaching us how we can use these wonderful grass-fed products from our farmers. And that is sponsored by the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and the Mountains to Bay Grazers Alliance. And please join us. It'll be a wonderful time. And we'll also have farm bingo. So do hang out. And please, every one of you is now a member. That was included with your ticket, and you are a part of our community. Tomorrow we have our membership meeting, and that's going to be at 8:15 in this room. There will also be breakfast here, so, come eat food. But come share your opinions. Come here. If you want to know what Future Harvest is doing, what are our programs, how are we doing, how are we adapting to changing environment, please come. You're part of this organization now. It's our annual business meeting, and you can come help us with an election. Thank you to everybody. Please go eat. Sorry. Thank you to Nice Farms Creamery, Michelle's Granola, and Atwater's Jam for providing tomorrow's breakfast. And please go eat wonderful local food now. Thank you all so much.